If you log on to social media or scan the major news headlines of the week, you'll realize there is one universal truth. And that truth is this. Everyone loves to have an opinion on transgender issues, on the pronouns they use, their representation, the sports they play, even what bathrooms they use. And more often than not, these conversations take place without trans or queer voices in the room. Because this is also true. Very few of us listen to trans people on the realities they face, the joys and triumphs, the violence and resistance, and their everyday negotiations for identity.
Trans discourse has kind of polarized even the most progressive of people, woke folks, left-leaning liberal janta.
We have been given only two possibilities for sex, two possibilities for gender, one possibility for sexuality, and one possibility for relationality in marriage.
Are you open to hiring trans persons? Are you open to writing stories, of trans persons?
Very often than not, it sort of boils down to making trans as a token.
The story of trans and queer lives who are outside of this formula has been largely written by law and medicine, because the tools have been criminalization and pathologization.
Are you thinking about the fact that what our body is or how we see ourselves as? And do you want to respect us or do you want to reduce us to our bodies?
I am a Telugu speaker, like a native Telugu speaker, and I don't know anything but slurs in Telugu to refer to myself as a trans person. So language also needs to evolve.
Cisgender people themselves don't know that they are cisgender. Why? Because we don't say cisgender, we just simply say man and woman.
I didn't want to sort of come out of one gender box to enter into another gender box.
There is no specific prediction of athletic performance when it comes to things like testosterone. And two, there are studies on bone density, but also very few, I think, of those studies used trans athletes as their subjects.
One thing that we keep hearing is that it's unfair to women. My only suggestion would be that we stop underestimating women and we stop centering white women as the women's category in sports, as speaking for all women in sports.
Welcome to Let's Talk About Trans Lives.
Just before I hand over to my wonderful colleague Jayashree, introduction of how we got here and how this podcast has come about. This came about when two of our wonderful subscribers, and Newslaundry has the most loveliest, most generous and smartest subscribers in the world. Prithvi and his partner, who is not joining us, Devashri, on the podcast, heard one of our haftas and wrote me a very polite email informing me that my understanding of trans issues is a bit clumsy, offensive to say the least, and needs an education. And I was like, okay, so why don't, if you guys are around, put the panel together and let's record one so uncles like me and others around the country can get a bit of an education. And we will explore various aspects of this, from, the practical to the legal to how it is evolving, from just social practices to even legislations, and who is ahead of who, which countries are doing well, which are not.
So I know we started off with very strong uncle energy, but we'll try and dispel that over the course of this conversation. So before we begin, could we just do a quick round of introductions? You guys can tell us your names, your pronouns, where you live, and maybe like a line about yourselves.
My name you already know, it's Prithvi. I am based out of Mumbai, but currently in the studio in Delhi. My pronouns are he and him. I am a communications professional, a writer, a filmmaker, and so on and so forth. Also an argumentative Indian, and that's why I'm here. Yeah, thanks.
Great.
Hi, I'm KP. I live in Bombay. My pronouns are they, them, and I am basically a mental health nerd geek. I've been a mental health professional for more than 20 years, educator, advocate, researcher. Been doing some work on queer and trans mental health.
Hi, I'm Kanmani. I'm a lawyer and a transgender woman practicing in Chennai, including the Honorable Madras High Court. My pronouns are she, her. It's been a year and a half technically since I started practicing. That's about it.
Hi, I'm Anandya. I live in Calcutta, and I see myself in this very uncomfortable position of even as much as we have been, sort of identifying with, I identify myself as being trans. I also sort of sit uncomfortably with how these identities, sort of do things that they do to us. So we'll try and see if we can unpack some of those.
So could we sort of take a step back and, as if we were children of 10 years old, what is like vocabulary 101 for the transgender community?
So all these manuals sort of kind of very neatly and quite unproblematically and uncritically looked at sex and gender as very distinct and separate and neatly, divided. And the discomfort sort of came from the fact that for many of us, this very clear, almost clinical separation didn't quite match with the realities around.
The world offers us the 2:2:1:1 formula. Two bodies, meaning two kinds of sexes, two kinds of genders, one sexuality and one form of relationality. So this often doesn't get defined. So for example, when I say that a child has the possibility of only two sexes, we say this is natural and biological. Who said so? If we look at history of medicine, for example, there was a time in the history of medicine when there was a theory of one sex. So you had the male body, which was the standard with the penis, and then we talked about the other body that did not have the penis. So it's only in evolution, for example, as science has developed, medicine has developed. If you look at the history of medical science.
Just to answer your previous question about what does trans stand for, I don't know if I have an answer for you. It could mean transgressing for someone. It could mean transcending for someone. And over-insistence on labels kind of ends up derailing the conversation to some extent. And it allows, or rather it disallows or robs you of the opportunity to relate to me as a person rather than an identity. When I'm trying to explain myself or trying to tell you what transgender means, your gaze or your way of looking at me becomes way more narrow, whereas maybe there are multiple sides to me that kind of transcend even that label of being transgender. With that being said, I think I will take one for the team and lay down some basic definitions, because I think language is also important in that not only cis people are listening to this conversation. There might be younger trans folks, there might be questioning folks who use these language to understand themselves better, to find each other. So transgender is the broader umbrella, and basically it refers to people whose sense of self might be at odds with what the society at large expects of them.
Being a Tamil trans woman, I think I will bring this up. I mean, some of us already know this is, at least in Tamil, we have come up with terms like Tirunangai, which refers to trans women, Tirunambi, which refers to trans men, and Thirunar, which refers to trans persons in general, and so many other terms which now, I mean, the High Court themselves have published as part of a judgment, and the government has also said we'll take it up. Now that's like a 20-year curve. I mean, the community proposed first of all for trans women. The chief minister took it up, and Karunanidhi, the late chief minister of Tamil Nadu, he said, okay, fine, Tirunangai, and then it's still a fight to even. So when you think about transgender, you got to think about the fact that
I know that I feel like this also asks a lot of all of you to sort of be put in this position where you feel like you're defending your identity. So I just want to take it to, and it's a question that Prithvi had told me about, which I thought was really nice, which is that trans lives aren't just about hardships, and they're also about trans joy. So very quickly, if we could just go around and maybe you could talk about what does trans joy look like for you?
To me, trans joy is, I mean, many moments, but some of us, I mean, who are here would know my friend Vikweram, who I still remember my first year was very, very alienating when I was living every day I was carrying a sari to law school, changing, doing my classes, changing, going back home. So it was almost very, very alienating. And I had a love for saris. And in the beautiful Mummy Ki Saris project, there were 3 saris that mothers who I did not even know, mothers who have never met me, through Vikwaram passed on 3 saris to me. And I broke down that day. I was like, I could never imagine that, I would ever get a sari from any mother or any parent for that matter. And that was one moment I think I'll never forget. That was Trans Joy. And the other one is
I think I should just also, the concern that I have personally as a 70s, 80s cis man grown up in an all boys boarding, so my understanding and view of this is somewhat primitive. I actually, on that definition of what KP said, I personally think that person should be allowed to compete wherever they want. I'm only talking about this new thing, which is very new to me, that I identify as, whatever I choose to today. I cannot get my head around that. And that is, so the pit KP has, I mean, I would still consider that person a woman or a man or however that person wants to be identified. It's the other one which I just
See,
I don't
just
get.
one quick response to that. I mean, social identification is one thing again. I can say I identify this or that. So I identify as genderqueer, for example. My pronouns are they and them, right? But if you look at my documentation, right, I haven't done legal transition, right? So as of now, I will have to do whatever I have to do vis-a-vis the state in the category female, irrespective of whether I'm comfortable with that or not. So I
Right.
can say what I want to say to you, and if you are somebody who is respectful generally of people, you will accept what I'm saying.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I get to go about my life, doing my passport, and when I'm standing in a queue at the airport or in a mall or whatever, I get to choose which line I go into and stuff,
Right.
right?
That
And
is
even
still
if I
decided for
make
you.
those legal transitions, I mean, we hear so many stories where you have on the passport, there will be either X or T or even female written, and the security person will say, I will not check you because according to me, you're not a woman.